If you're stuck wondering what type of business to build, or maybe you're building something that you don't actually like, but you're building it because you were told that it was the best business model to get into, well, if this is you, then I'm going to explain how to actually choose the best online business for you. So you may have seen videos ranking businesses from S tier to F tier, or videos talking about why a specific business model is the absolute best way to go. And I think these videos do have valid points, but I think it's not completely accurate to actually say that one business model is definitely better than another. I do think that as of right now, some business models are performing better this year than others, but I mean, that can really change in the next year and beyond. There are major changes happening all the time that can significantly shift the opportunity and the risk profile for any business model, really, whether that's through a changing economic climate or AI innovations or shipping issues or anything. Now, on that note, I also believe that most business models can become seven-figure businesses with the right combination of traffic and monetization channels. So with business models being more or less equal in those respects, I think a large part of what makes a business model a great fit really comes down to you. So instead of ranking business models just objectively by S tier to F tier, I think the best thing to do is to help you to understand what the road will look like for each of the major business models and help you make your decision from that perspective. So defining the ideal online business for you will come down to answering two general questions, I'll say. So the first question is traffic. So how will you create the traffic or get in front of people who would want to spend money on a problem that they have? And then the second question is the follow-up, which is monetization. So what are you going to sell to solve that problem? And being able to do that profitably is what will make up your business. Now, how you choose to answer those two questions, so what becomes your traffic engine system and what becomes your monetization system, is what is going to determine what your day-to-day, your week-to-week, your month-to-month, your year-to-year experience of building and running this business is going to look like. So my hope is that you choose something that you actually enjoy and that's more profitable than a job and more enjoyable than a job, because if it isn't, then why not just work for a company? Now, some people think that Empire Flippers only sells websites, but in reality, if you look at the Empire Flippers marketplace, you can select 18 different monetizations, just to give you an example of the different options that exist in the online space. And that's not limited, or that's not a full list of all of the options out there. But in general, the primary online business models are content businesses, e-commerce businesses, digital product businesses, SaaS, and I'll also put membership businesses there, and service-based businesses. So I'm gonna run through a list of the different business models and then summarize some of the different businesses within each category. I'll go over some of the pros and cons and the operating experience. So what does it actually look like to run that kind of business? So let's start with content-based businesses. This can include blogs or YouTube channels, email newsletters, and social media-based businesses. So within these businesses, your primary focus is generating traffic and monetizing that through other people's products or potentially your own products in the future. So let's talk about the pros. This can be low cost to get started. So you can start by writing the content yourself or producing your own video content, assuming you have the materials to do so. You don't actually need to buy inventory and you don't need to hire somebody with technical experience. That said, it's also quick to start up. So you can get started in as quick as a day. And of course, I'd recommend planning this out a little bit, planning out your content side or your channel around what your content is going to be that you're producing for who, but you don't need to find manufacturers or test product samples or wait for shipments. The first con is that it can take time to build your audience to meaningfully monetize. So if you're monetizing through your traffic through display advertising or affiliates on a website, you're going to need probably tens or hundreds of thousands of website visitors per month to make significant income, and that can take time to create enough content and for that content to rank on search engines. So it's a slow build initially, and eventually over months and years that grows to significant income. The second point is that there is low barrier to entry. So low cost can also mean that there is a lower barrier to entry for competition. And to differentiate yourself from that competition, you're going to need to create quality content. But of course, with whatever business model you choose, you should get into this with the expectation that you'll be building something of quality. Because the barrier to entry for creating incredible content is actually not low, and that is going to be one of your strengths with coming into a content type business. Now let's talk about the operating experience. So your experience with this kind of business is going to be focused around producing content. Now you can choose which format of content you would like to produce. So that's going to be either written or video, audio, or maybe a combination of formats. And based on your preference, this is going to determine the platform that you're producing content on and how involved the content production process is. So for blogs, that's going to be written blog posts and images. For a YouTube channel, that's going to be videos, of course, thumbnails, title, description. For a podcast, that's going to be an audio file, thumbnail, description. For social channels, that can depend on what type of social channel, but it's going to be either written or video. Now, the type of content business that you choose is also going to determine kind of the world that you're going to live in, because you'll need to understand how the game in that world works. So if it's YouTube, you'll need to understand how YouTube channel growth works and how the algorithm works. If it's a blog, you'll need to understand what type of content Google favors for how to rank organically. If it's a newsletter, you'll need to understand that you will still need to build a traffic source and have traffic convert to email subscribers. But whether it's a blog or a YouTube channel or a newsletter, your operations and area of expertise is going to be around search engine optimization, so SEO. It's going to be around content production, production management, and potentially working with affiliates, sponsors, or display ad partners. Next, let's talk about e-commerce businesses. So within e-commerce, this can be selling through Amazon FBA or drop shipping products or fulfilling your own products through a platform like Shopify. Now, starting with the pros of this is that it's a higher profit margin. You make more per unit sold for selling your own products as opposed to selling somebody else's products, or that's the goal at least, of course. And then there's scalability. So these businesses tend to be ones that you can grow to 7 figures more quickly than some of the others because of the higher profit margins, and you can also run ads to accelerate that process. You are ultimately working with bigger numbers here. Now, those bigger numbers are also a con because you also have higher startup costs. Well, usually, unless you go with drop shipping, you will be purchasing inventory up front, and you're likely going to be running ads to sell the product. If you do get into this, have a budget prepared up front for inventory, for ad costs, and for that second order of inventory, because you will need to place another inventory order while your first batch of inventory is still selling if you want to avoid stocking out. Now, let's talk about the building and operating experience. So the experience you can expect when, at least for creating your own and selling your own product, is designing the product, finding manufacturers for the product, communicating with those manufacturers, which includes negotiating costs. This will include inventory management, which is actually the process of getting the inventory from the manufacturer to the fulfillment center or to your customer. And this also looks like reordering inventory on an ongoing basis. This could also include fulfilling the orders yourself if you aren't selling through Amazon FBA, or if you're responsible for filling inventory yourself. And then there's going to be customer support. So some e-commerce businesses, they have more or less customer support depending on the cost of your product, if the type of product you're selling has a high defect or a high refund rate. So if you're selling on Amazon, then you might have no customer support responsibilities, or very minimal, as they might handle all of the returns and customer support inquiries for you. Now, if you're drop shipping, you might have low customer support if you're selling something that's at low cost. But if it's a few $100 to a few $1,000 or greater, then you should expect customer support to be a major part of your business, especially if shipping takes a long time. Now, if you're selling on your own website, like on Shopify, you are going to have to handle customer support yourself, although it could be less frequent if you sell something inexpensive or with a low return rate. Now, some people love being able to connect with their customers and to learn more about their audience, and some people don't want anything to do with customer support. So depending on where you fall on this spectrum, this can determine what type of e-commerce business you'd actually want to build and what type of products you may want to sell. Next, let's talk about digital product businesses. So these types of businesses can include eBooks, audiobooks, digital downloads, and courses. So based on the type of product that you sell, that's going to determine the skill set and potentially the cost to produce the products and the type of platform that you're going to be spending the most time on. So with eBooks and with audiobooks, you'll probably start off on Amazon KDP and Amazon ACX. And for digital downloads, this can be something like Gumroad or your own website. For courses, this can be something like Teachable or Kajabi. Now, some of the pros of this business model, first is that you don't have to buy or manage inventory, but it is like selling a product still. And once you have a sellable product, you can sell it an unlimited number of times. It can also be low cost, so you can get really low cost with digital products, especially with things like low content books, and you can even make them using something like Canva, or even some people have used a word processor. Now the cons are that the low content stuff is low barrier to entry as well, so it can be difficult for you to distinguish yourself from other competitors if there's a sea of other low content books out there, for example. Now the higher content stuff can also be pricier to create, and it might take time to build reviews, and it can also be hard to sell certain products on anything but third-party platforms. So for example, if you want to sell audiobooks, you're probably going to need to sell your audiobook on Amazon ACX or another company that has an app that supports easy book downloads. I know personally I've never actually bought a book file, I guess, and listened to it on my computer. I've only used Audible. Now for online courses, this can take a lot of time and resources to create, and it might be less sellable if it's heavily branded to a specific individual, because a buyer might be concerned that once they buy the business and you're no longer the person who is running the courses, if you are highly visible through marketing, then they're worried that the business is just going to tank after they acquire it. And lastly, these products are usually only going to be bought once, so a customer is not going to be buying multiple books in most cases, multiple ebooks at least. But the flip side is that you might have customers who purchase multiple products from you. So if you have a business like a romance genre business, you might have an audience of customers and fans who buy multiple books within that genre or within that series or something from you. And especially if the products are low cost to create, then this could be a pretty lucrative subscription type scenario. Now let's talk about the operating experience for this kind of business. So operating this business, the experience can be very different depending on the type of digital product that you sell, and if you'll be selling on a platform that already has a high volume of traffic that's looking for those products. So for example, the ebook and audiobook experience is going to look like producing the books, launching them, building your reviews probably on Amazon or on another site that has a review system, and you'll probably be running ads to increase the exposure to your books. And then once you gain those reviews, you'll get a better organic ranking, and then you'll be able to sell without spending as much on ads. But that's kind of going to be the game that you're looking at for that kind of business. Now for online courses, you're probably going to need to build your own audience to sell a course to. So this can be owning a blog that already has blog traffic to it, or a YouTube channel, or even social media channels. Or if you don't want to go the audience building route, then you could go the advertising route by running ads on YouTube or on Google or on social channels. So if you do go the course route, just know that you're going to need to decide what type of traffic method as well, whereas that's kind of chosen for you with ebooks and audiobooks. Next, let's talk about these SaaS business models. So SaaS, or software as a service, can be seen as kind of a membership-based digital service, and this can look like a tool that helps businesses perform a specific task more efficiently. So that can be, ChatGPT is an example of a SaaS business essentially. Or this can be something like Spotify, where people can listen to music on demand, and customers will usually pay on a monthly or annual basis. So let's talk about the pros. The first being that after you actually build the product itself, the costs to operate the business can be pretty minimal, meaning that your profit margins per customer can be huge. Also, the monthly price point on the tool can be pretty high, sometimes higher than $100 per month for certain SaaS tools. And that is per month, so the third pro is that it's a recurring revenue system for those on the monthly or annual plans. Now let's talk about the cons. The first con is that the cost of building the product can be pretty expensive and require technical knowledge. Though I will say that the cost and the difficulty to build SaaS tools has come down dramatically with no-code and low-code solutions. You will also need to choose your traffic source with SaaS, or your traffic sources. There are sites like Product Hunt or Reddit that have an audience that is interested in paying for SaaS tools, but that's mostly for launching a product, and you'll still need to have a method of driving ongoing traffic and getting ongoing customers. Now let's talk about the operating experience. So during the build phase, this is going to look like either you or someone with the technical expertise building a working version of the product. Now some people try to do this quickly and cheaply to get a minimum viable product or an MVP to put in front of an audience and see if they sign up or they buy the pre-sale version in order to validate continuing with this business. Others will go into stealth mode to build something that they hope will sell once they reveal it. Now, once the product is built and you're in the operating mode and the day-to-day mode, a majority of the activities will be spent on replying to customers, making product improvements and updates, acquiring new customers, and trying to retain current customers. Some of it is technical, some of it's customer support, and some of it is marketing. Now, there are successful one-person SaaS businesses, so it doesn't have to be a huge operation. And those are usually people with technical experience who also choose a marketing channel that doesn't require a ton of resources. Next, let's talk about service-based businesses. Now, a service-based business is similar to SaaS, except you're using people to provide the service. And this can be like a website where you can hire a video editor to help you produce your YouTube videos, or someone to manage your ad campaigns for you on Amazon. This becomes more of a business and less of a freelance or consulting type of gig when you've built something that doesn't require you to actually do the work. You have clients who are paying for the service and not necessarily you as the person. And also, you have a process for acquiring ongoing clients. Those are really the two factors. Now, the pros for this type of business model is that unlike SaaS, this can be done without much technical expertise, and also that the price points can be very high depending on the service. And similar to SaaS, the payments can be ongoing. Now, some of the cons of this business model is that this business model can be very operationally heavy in terms of managing a team and potentially having a lot of custom projects. It's also heavily dependent on your employees, which can make your overhead costs very high. Now, the operating experience for this type of business, with this business model, you'd be managing your team and performing any role that really hasn't been delegated. You would also likely be the person to reply to client escalations, and you would need to make sure that clients are paying on time and that you have enough liquidity, enough capital to pay your team on time to make sure that your team is actually continuing to operate. So to help you decide which of these business models you might enjoy the most, you could ask yourself, what type of activities do you like? What type of activities are you good at? And what skill sets do you have that would allow you to build this type of product or this type of traffic source? Also, how involved or uninvolved do you want to be in the daily operations? And can you combine a traffic source and a monetization in a way that makes you excited? And of the different options or directions that I mentioned, are there ways that you can combine a specific traffic source and a specific product that makes you excited? Now, the above is a way to brainstorm to help you with some starting points, but if you're on the fence or you're unsure about the direction that you'd actually want to go, I recommend experimenting with quick and low cost tests. So try writing a blog post, or try creating a YouTube video, try researching e-commerce products, or try emailing manufacturers about product details. It's also important to note that you're not stuck with a specific type of business model either. You might start out with a YouTube channel and you might find that you don't like creating videos, but you're good with writing content, for example. So your YouTube scripts instead could become blog articles or weekly newsletter emails. With whatever business model you choose, I think the most important part here is making sure that you're being consistent with the process and that you're willing to learn how to improve. Now, speaking of newsletters, we actually have a free newsletter called This Week in M&A, which helps you to stay updated with what's going on in the online business space. And with clearly so many different business models, trends, and overall activity, this newsletter is a great way to stay updated and well prepared as a digital entrepreneur. So I'll leave that link below. And if you have an e-commerce business right now and you want to know how to maximize your valuation before you sell it, then check out the video here. So that's all for now. See you next time.